So guys, here on the channel, we talk a lot about why dividend investing is so awesome and why more people should do it. But we don't talk as often about the things you shouldn't do as a dividend investor or the things you should be cautious about. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. Here are 5 things you should never do with your dividend portfolio. Now, number 1 on our list today, guys, this first rule comes straight from Charlie Munger. He put it best when he said, the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. As we all know, the power of compounding is just incredible, and it's one of those things that just gets better the longer you do it. But it only works if you just let it do its thing, so you should never completely uproot your portfolio if you don't have to. And there will be times when you might want to dip into your stocks. Maybe you want to use that money to buy a car or put a down payment on a house, or maybe you have some sort of financial emergency and you have no other option than to pull it from your portfolio. And life happens. I can definitely see the case for those things, but if you don't absolutely need the money, just let it stay there. Let it keep compounding and let it grow. And one other thing too, if you're tempted to sell out of all of your holdings because you think some sort of crash or some sort of correction is on the way, just remember that's usually a losing game. We have no idea what the future holds. Nobody ever really knows when a correction will actually happen. And trying to time it, and selling out of all of your stocks in anticipation of that can mean potentially missing out on a lot of gains and a lot of dividends along the way. As Peter Lynch once said, far more money has been lost by investors preparing for corrections than has been lost in the corrections themselves. So if you get to a point where you really are concerned about the market heading south in a real meaningful way, instead of completely liquidating all of your holdings, what you should do instead now is just take a percentage of your weekly or monthly contributions and start setting that aside and start building up a cash position. That way, when a correction finally does occur, and they do, that's just part of the market cycle, but that way when a correction finally does occur, you've got some ammunition ready to rock and roll so you can take advantage of all the great buying opportunities. But anyway, moving on to this second thing to never do, guys. It's never follow the crowd. We are so fortunate to live in a time where we have an endless amount of information available at our fingertips. It has never been easier to learn about investing than it is right now. We've got all these great websites and social media platforms where people are sharing their portfolios and their thoughts on different investing strategies, which is awesome. I think it is so cool just that people are talking more about investing, because that's what's going to help even more people get into it. With that said, though, the downside is that it creates just so much noise. Everyone has a different way of doing things, and everyone has different opinions on the best way to invest and the best stocks to invest in, and therefore everyone's going to have a different opinion about how you should invest and which stocks you should or shouldn't invest in. And with that said, it's important to keep in mind that in every single transaction, there are 2 sides. When you're buying this stock thinking that it's going to be a great investment for a long period of time, there's someone on the other end of that transaction who is selling the stock because they think its best days are behind it. And both of you guys think you're right. At the end of the day, though, you need to do what you think is best. This is your portfolio. It's your money that you're investing for your financial future. So all the decisions that you make, you need to do based on your own homework. And that's not to say that you shouldn't stay open-minded and consider other people's ideas and opinions, but just don't blindly follow what other people are doing. And that includes me. Don't buy a stock because you hear me talking about it or just because I'm buying a stock. I could very well be wrong. I hope that's not the case, but I am only human. But anyway, guys, that's going to bring us to item number 3 on our list today, and that's never say never. We buy these stocks with the intent to hold on to them for the rest of our lives. We say that our favorite holding period is forever, which is a classic Warren Buffett quote, but it's true. The best possible scenario would be to invest in a company and just collect the passive income from it forever. And while that probably will happen with some of your holdings, it definitely will not happen with all of them. That's just the reality of the situation. The stock market is a complex, dynamic system that is constantly changing. It is constantly evolving, and there is so much that will happen between now and the rest of your life that will have been impossible to predict. And over what I'm sure will be a long and mostly successful investment career, you will have some errors in judgment. There will be some investments that you just don't quite get right, and that's okay. You can learn from those experiences, and they'll help you become a better investor, and part of being a good investor is knowing when to reevaluate. I think the fact that you even want to own stocks for the long haul just shows your head is in the right place. And one thing that can help ensure the longevity of your investments is to think about which companies will be resilient to change. And for me, a few names that come to mind would be ones like Waste Management or Rollins or Procter & Gamble. People will always have trash that needs to be dealt with. They will always have a need for things like diapers, toothpaste, and deodorant, and there will always be critters like ants, spiders, termites, and other things that get into places they shouldn't. So I would think about companies like those. What are some things that are likely not going to change for a long time, and how could I invest in things like that? And with that, guys, now moving on to the fourth thing to never do. It's never do anything just for the sake of doing something. Monish Pabrai has this great quote where he says something to the extent of, if you love watching paint dry, you'll be a good investor. And what he means by that is that sometimes investing will be boring. And you know what? It should be boring. If you own good companies in your portfolio that you don't really have to worry about, then you shouldn't need to constantly be tinkering with them. Just let them work for you over time. Still though, as human beings, we have this constant need to tweak and refine and optimize. And I think sometimes we feel like if we're not doing something, then maybe we're not doing enough. We feel like we're not working as hard as we should be. But the truth is, when it comes to investing, growth and building wealth takes time. It takes a long time. And oftentimes, the best thing that you can do for your portfolio is nothing at all. It's like what that classic quote says, your portfolio is like a bar of soap. The more you handle it, the smaller it gets. So when things start to feel boring, which they will, just embrace the boredom, okay? And don't do things just for the sake of doing things. Just go take a walk or something. And now, guys, moving on to our fifth item of the day. I'm really excited about this one. It's my favorite. Never stop learning. Investing is a multidisciplinary approach. It's not just about accounting and finance and economics. There are so many things outside of those three things that you can learn and apply to investing. For example, there are tons of applications to investing from other subjects like psychology, philosophy, biology, physics, and a whole lot more. And I think that's one of the things that makes investing so much fun. It gives you the opportunity to really follow your curiosity and apply all these different things you learn to what you're doing in your portfolio. And this idea ties back to Charlie Munger's idea of building a latticework of mental models. He believed that investing is a subset of worldly wisdom. You get to learn about all these different subjects, and then you can pull from these different mental models you pick up along the way, like the idea of recency bias or the theory of evolution, for example. You can find ways to apply all of these different things to your investments. And for me, that's become one of my favorite things about investing. I can learn something new every single day. I can study the things that I find interesting. And at some point in my investing journey, probably when I least expected, all these different things that I've been learning over the years, everything that's stored up in here will come in handy. And speaking of coming in handy, in this next video right over here, I'm telling you about 7 painful mistakes that many investors make. Knowing about these and avoiding them at all costs will definitely come in handy. It will save you a lot of money, will save you a lot of frustration. So click right over here to learn about those, and I'll see you in the next one.